Hey guys, BBI here. I want to stop and say thanks for tuning in and checking out whatever the video is about that's about ready to come up next. If you could take a minute and hit subscribe, I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you enjoy what you've seen here, make sure to hit the like button. We'd greatly appreciate your support. Anyhow, guys, all that aside, let's get on with the show. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, you've only had 4 hours of sleep and you know it. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Okay, I stayed up way too late last night trying to make the second part of this little saga continue for you guys. And then I got on Facebook and, well, the other thing I have to say is I came out here in the middle of the night to answer a question. The guy had a question about an automotive headlight noise and how I went about doing it, and he wanted to... Look, I'm not Google, okay? I got a couple thousand of these videos out there, guys, and it's amazing to me. People will come up and they'll randomly come up. See, you know, they just show up, right? 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning last night, I'm laying in bed and I'm just starting to doze off, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna do one more little sweep through Facebook and make sure I've got everything covered for my day, check my text, check everything. And I go in and look, and sure enough, here's some guy that's randomly asked me a question. Hey, BBI, about 2 years ago, you did a video on automotive headlight noise in the receive. Where's that video? And did you ever get that figured out? And it's like, yes, I got that figured out. Please don't make me go look up the address for you and the URL and everything. Please don't. Please go find it yourself. Please, 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 is what I'm thinking. And this is what the guy immediately does. Oh, that's great. Where's the video? It was quicker to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and come out here and pull out the capacitor out of the drawer that I ended up using to fix that issue, by the way, which was a 2 nanofarad capacitor, than it was to go search through the archival index of videos and say, here's the 30-minute video I dedicated to it, and just take a picture of the cap and show them the value. So when I did that, I came out here, all the lights are off, and my eye fell upon this right here. Hold on. This, as I came out, my eyes fell upon this right here. And then I asked myself in my head at 2 o'clock in the morning, when was the last time you used your bird meters for anything? And then it dawned on me. It has been almost 3 days. Yes, I'm that dumbass. So I thought, instead of being all negative nilly like I had been because I was irritated, I thought, man, I'm going to go and I'm going to make a positive joke post about it. Oh, man. So I get on Facebook and I tell everybody, so yeah, you ever been that guy that gets up in the middle of the night and then realizes you left your bird kit on for like 2.5, 3 days? Needless to say, them 9-volt batteries that are inside that thing are junk. But what I did ended up having to deal with was, about 10 people show up and go, well, I got mine wired on a 9-volt wall wart. Why don't you do that? I don't ever have to worry about changing the batteries. Okay, look, a decade ago I tried this, y'all. Had this wired on a 9-volt power supply. And you know what happened? The first time I was running anything kind of significant on this bench, like a 32 pill, which is like a foot away from the meter, I keyed it up and all the needle went to the right. Dink, and it never came back. It just stayed there. The RF got into the power wire that was going into the meter, which was twisted and dual shielded and was bonded to the case and bonded to an earth ground. Still managed to get into that power wire, overload the amplifier unit that makes this thing read peak, which then in turn overloaded the meter so bad that the meter froze permanently over here, as in like it burned a coil up, it screwed up the peak kit, and it destroyed the bird element. So I had to go and explain to people I don't like doing that. I don't like having a 9-volt wall wart attached to my, let's see, the bird meter itself's $400, $300. Peak kit's about $100. And the element itself's about $150. So about $550 bird meter, right? And then I proceeded to have to deal with the cacophony of, well, I've had mine hooked up on more than 10,000 watts for years and I've never had a problem. Right, is it on your workbench where you're operating 10,000 watts right next to your meter? And no, it's hooked up on your station, which is, your antenna is probably 150 feet or 300 feet away. And no. You can't win them all, boys and girls. You can't win them all. I had to go on and explain to people, if I had a bunch of wires running in and out of this meter in the beginning, I would have had people dragging me up on a cross and being like, with the spear in my side going, you're making her bird meters like. No, I have to be able to, at any time, be able to grab these things and show them all the way around and show that nothing is connected to them. There's no, I even had one guy at one point try to claim that I had a remote control unit set up in there so I could change how that meter reads. I got to be transparent all the time. That, and honestly, I don't want to risk my $500 bird meter and know that if I just put a 9-volt battery in it every 3 months, I'm good to go. If this is your first time watching, I want to say welcome. If you are following along with this series, I want to say welcome back. We are endeavoring to build an Pt.3 from kit per manual instructions. If I wasn't following the manual and I wasn't having to video this for everybody, we would have been done with this already. So what I'm saying with that statement is, please guys understand that every single hour of video that you guys watch that comes from here, not just this segment but overall, equals 5 to 6 hours worth of work in the back end, either in the sitting over here at the computer rendering the stuff, or uploading it, or dealing with the tags of it, or making sure the customer's okay with what they're seeing. And it's a giant time suck. So please give me thumbs up, please subscribe, please share. It's the only thing I got going on. I'm flirting with the idea of doing a Patreon channel, but it's the BBI rule, okay? The law of the BBI shop. Things here take 6 times longer than they would take anywhere else, and it's because of this thing. If all I had to do was fix amps all day long and didn't have to stand up here and be the dancing monkey in a puppet, things would go so much faster. But you guys get enjoyment from it. I derive pleasure from being able to show you what we're working with. Let's start off here. We're going to be on page 29 today of the manual. If you guys want to download the manual, let's say, a little interactive sport, let's just say that you guys want to download this manual and follow along as we're going. I'm going to take a picture of page 29 and I'm going to insert it at the beginning of this video. And every page that we go through, I'm going to show you where we're at in the book. Today we're going to populate the chassis. Chassis parts. So it looks like we're going to do coax connectors, on-off switches, and our foot pedal jacks for ALC, and then the remote. And it looks like we're going to start putting together our sockets. Our power terminal switch, our plug for the back of the cabinet, this thing here, which is an upgrade from the 220 to the 221. We're going to put in our relay, and then we're going to come back and we're going to wire up our ALC wiring and our meter, part of our metering circuit, and then hopefully get the RF deck board in. So I want to get from page 29 through page 34 completed. Then we're going to start putting our RF deck together, and well, this book's 69 pages long. Assembly instructions are from page 75, so I want to be roughly halfway today, if not a little bit further. So first things first, third things last, let's go pull the parts that are shown on page number 29, which is going to be our RCA jacks, our coax connectors, which we're going to upgrade to gold-plated Teflon. So Teflon dielectric, gold-plated insert, high quality. We'll keep the stock ones in play. We're going to leave them in the kit, and let's go get our switches. Okay, I got to bring in and explain to you what we're doing here. So none of these parts are really labeled. This is one of 3. None of these parts are really labeled. And I just got to pick through the bag and look and see what all we got going on. This is all of our hardware for our coax connectors. And I've got to just kind of hunt through it and figure it out. There's no correlating, says will come from bag whatever. It doesn't say this in the book. This is also the point where we've got to be very careful what we do with the oils. So I'm now going to switch over to using gloves, because any kind of fingerprint or anything that I leave on here, it's going to be here forever, like forever. So I'm going to wipe this down as soon as I get off camera here and here, to get rid of those fingerprints. It's got to be perfect when I'm done, or I won't be satisfied. These 2 bags, this bag has got some of the body screws I need, but then this bag has got all the eyelets and star washers and nuts and stuff I need to do the sockets. I've got an extra nut, 2 extra nuts in here that I can't account for. That's okay. It's okay. We're going to figure it out as we go. Let's talk about Pt.3 connectors. So these are nickel plated. This is what come with the kit. And those are nylon inserts. We've had problems with the nylon inserts in the past. Now, once again, 50 years go by, we develop a little bit better plastics, right? These are silver coated Teflon. This is actual virgin Teflon, not the $1.25 connector that you buy off of Amazon or Fleabay. We buy these from Max Gain Systems. These are the legit Teflon. Can't burn them with flame, just like the coax that we're putting in this thing, with gold-plated insert. We've had a lot less failure with these, and I use these in all of my own amps that I produce or rebuild or work on. So we're going to use silver-plated Teflon with gold insert coax connectors. And we're going to slap those in here real quick, and then we're going to pull even more parts, and we'll be back. I want to show you guys this little tool, by the way. This is the legendary, mythical unicorn horn nut starter made by Heathkit. I'm afraid to use this. It's so old. I'm afraid that if I use this, it's going to end up just falling apart. I mean, it feels soft and the plastic's somewhat supple, but this is just a piece of very soft PVC, and I'm just afraid to use this. There's a lot of little stuff, like, here, I'll give you an example. These meters are in grade A mint condition, but the little washers that go around the meter nuts, they're in mint condition, but I don't even want to touch these, because see, this one's already cracked and it's just from age. This one, half of the damn thing, the insulator is still there, as you can see, but the part that's overhanging has disintegrated in multiple different places. So there's certain things on this that I know from experience are just delicate as all get out, right? Just delicate. Now, what I didn't point out yesterday is I hand tied this with wax string. I've got epoxy heat shrink holding the split where I've got the wires all twisted together, this twist loom. I've got epoxy heat shrink at the split, and then I got another piece of epoxy based heat shrink going this way. And the idea is to set this up so the last thing that can fail is the wire or have something split apart. But I got to be very careful. Like, I was freaking out when I was spinning these by hand. Most people would put them in a drill and spun them up. These wire leads, you got to remember, are about as old as your parents. When this wire was manufactured, I guarantee it was 10, 15 years before the kit was put together. So we got to be super, and like this unobtainium position switch here. There's a lot of little things that we don't normally pay attention to. You've got to keep this slit on the side of the switch orientated vertically. It can't be cocked or anything, otherwise it'll hit the internal body plate that bolts up to this. And we want to be able to take this off and not have a chance of having this break. This is made of some very, very thin unobtainium plastic. I mean, I don't know how it's going to show up on camera here, but this plastic's in great shape. It's a Bakelite form of plastic, but it's got striations in it that go vertically with it. So any little bit of torque this direction, and it's just going to bust and break right off. Very delicate. A lot of these things are very delicate, but I had a guy come up and ask on Facebook today, he goes, "My God, I can't believe you're not using the legendary Heathkit nut driver starter. It'll make putting that together slick." I was like, yeah, I'm scared to. And see, just in moving it around, that nut fell out. This little piece of hardware I had stuck here in the end fell out. This is neat. This will come with the kit, but I got nut drivers on the wall. I'll use those. There's a lot of little things here that I'm scared. This makes me, they make me nervous, like this here. I could put this together and probably not think twice about it. But you and I both know those nylon inserts that are in there are just as brittle and as old as time can get. Even though they're sitting in a box sealed in a bag and they look like they're pristine, this is way better technology. So it's the small little things where people are going to interface with this a lot. It's like this here. I've had these fail too, just because they're old. And the Bakelite that's on here, this nylon, well, this would predate nylon, so this may be hemp or some kind of fibrous material embedded in Bakelite insulator that's in here, maybe a glass form, but I doubt it. When did fiberglass get invented? Maybe even be hemp. Might be hemp it reinforced. I don't know. This is a Bakelite plastic. I've had these insulators break too, so it's like we got to tighten everything down, but we don't want to over tighten it, because if we put just a little bit too much pressure on it 50 years ago, it might have been fine, but today it'll cause the whole thing to break. And then we're up shit creek without a paddle, and we got a hole in our dinghy, and we're starting to sink into the turd pond. Trying to avoid that. Okay, let's put these connectors in. One last thing. Come join us on the group. This has been really fun for me. There's been a lot of interaction that's taken place between people that have had one of these or had a kit like this. Come join the group. Please come join the group and come interact as we're doing this. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity for me and for you guys. Or maybe you've done this already and you've got some tips or tricks that you can give me. Please come interact with us in the group. I don't leave comments on here for a reason, a lot of reasons. Primary one is it takes more time to reply to all the comments here when you have several thousand videos like I've got in, how do I put this? When I sit down to do replies to people and replies to stuff on the internet, I have to take my head mentally to where I was at when I was doing each one of those projects, and it's easier for me to not interact through YouTube and have the constant notification going on with YouTube saying somebody commented on some video from 4 or 5, 6, 7 years ago, it's easier to have them just come and approach me either through Facebook or call me on the phone, right? There's very few YouTubers, like let's look at Mr. Carlson's Lab, for example. I had a gentleman talk to me about that yesterday. He goes, man, you leave all your comments off, so I have to come over here and I have to interact with you here. Yeah, well, he goes, I also support Mr. Carlson's Lab. I was like, that's awesome. Mr. Carlson's awesome. Watched several of his videos. He's a neat, smart man. He doesn't put his phone number up on every video. And he also doesn't have to deal with the, some days 100 phone calls a day, plus trying to get this done, plus doing the videos. They have a little bit removed more of an isolation, if that makes any sense. So therefore, they've got time to do all I don't. So come join the group. It's about 4,000 of us now in there that are all about rebuilding, modifying, restoring, hunting down, tracking parts. Had a guy today show up in the group looking for parasitics for his SB200. I've been working with him via text. He had a question about parasitics. I don't have any 47 ohm carbon pack resistors. I use 5 watt, 100 ohm carbon pack resistors, and I put them in parallel to get the 50 ohms. You really want to be somewhere between 40 and about 60 ohms, somewhere in there. But I had another guy said, hey man, I got a whole bunch of those on the shelf. Guess what? I want to buy some from that guy too, so I have some of my own. But that allows us to be able to work with each other and interact. So please come join the group. I'm really enjoying the interactivity between people and everybody showing up. Had another guy tell me the most complex thing he ever built was a 6-channel SP220 oscilloscope. And I know exactly which oscilloscope he's talking about. Way back when I was like 18 years old and was just getting out of high school, I went to work at, there used to be a CB shop at our big Flying J truck stop, not the one that we have today. No. We had a CB shop that was out there, and when I worked there, the building didn't have any heat. What we heated that whole shop with was this oscilloscope that was about 2.5 feet wide, about 4.5 feet deep, about 3.5 foot tall. It had a lens on it that was about this big, and it was a 6-channel Heathkit oscilloscope. And it had this big aluminum fan that sat in the back behind this big shroud guard, like something you'd find on the back of a Henry 2K, and we'd leave that thing running 24/7 in the winter. And in the summertime, we shut it off. But that oscilloscope produced so much heat that it would heat this whole building, and we never even had to worry about heat during the winter. I know exactly which oscilloscope he's talking about. There's a million billion little parts inside that thing. And my very first response to him was, so did it work the first time you powered it up? I'm loving it. We're having a lot of fun with this. And I want to thank you guys for the support. Please come join the group, come follow along. Okay, let me show you how this works. You guys will get a kick out of this. Okay, so according to the book, I need 2 632 1/4-inch long screws, 2 number 6 lock washers, and 2 632 nuts. So we went ahead and we did away with the paper bags, and this is our hardware. Okay, I've transferred it over to some plastic bags. Allows me to flip the bag over and see what's on the other side too, and it's resealable. So what we're looking for our next step, because we got our coax connectors in, and it's the little details that we got to focus on. Like, I re-indexed all the nuts in the back so that all the screw faces that face out are all, that's the level that we're going to. And like the on-off switches and the high-low switch that's going to be here in the front, change the taps. Even though it's covered up with a faceplate, we're going to attempt to make that same effort throughout. Okay, so it wants 632s, which is going to be like that screw right there. We're going to need some 632 bevels. So this is what we got to do. Get our fingy extensions. Now I'm going to need one. Four of those. Four of those. Now, receive that bag. Receipt it. There's some hardware in here I am not going to use, like this oxide coated 632 flat blade. It's starting to rust. It's not going to show, it doesn't show up very well on camera here. Oh, for the love of Pete and Pearl. Manual. This thing is starting to rust. Put it up against something white. Still not showing up very well. It's okay. We're not going to reuse these. I've got regular 632 stainless hardware that we'll use and pose to that. So 1, 2. And I am doing this with every single part. So there's a reason that I keep cutting away and saying, oh, we'll be back. Because I figure that you guys in YouTube land just need one. There we go. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Figured you guys in YouTube land don't want to die this slow, agonizing death as I go through this literally screw by screw by screw by screw. I don't know. Come and join me in the BBI group, BBI Amps. Come find out. Once again, I am looking for a high pot tester, you guys. Really, I'm looking for like a 10,000, 15,000 volt high pot tester. I know there's one out there. I am willing to pay a reasonable sum for it. Maybe there's a guy out there that wants to take pity on my dumb ass and maybe just give me one or let me trade it out with him in something. I'm always open. Phone's always on. Give me a call. Okay, let's get our foot pedal and our ALC plugs installed and let's move on. Okay. Look at how off-centered that is. This is the stock mounting holes. So now let's go ahead and we'll lightly lay on the faceplate. Look at what we got going on here. Look at what we got going on up there, over here. See that? The switch is not sitting in the middle of its rocker path, this stock switch. So I get it all put together and I go to tighten it down. I'm like, man, that don't look right, don't feel right. Because let's face it, I might have flipped one or two of these on in my life. You know what I'm saying? Just doesn't feel right to me. The tabs aren't even square. So this tab here needs to go out, and this one needs to go in. Huh. That's it. That's it. It's not rubbing. Nope. I did at some point though. Back this off. There we go. And then let's tilt that up. That'll work. Tweak things every once in a little bit. So, let's put this back together. Still not perfect. And I'm afraid if I bend these tabs back and forth too much, because they're not a rolled edge, they're a hard edge, that we're going to end up having metal fatigue and then it's going to break. So the way this is supposed to sit is with these plugs. And I know this from visually looking at a couple hundred of these over my lifetime. And because the manual says so here, outside of chassis, okay, the switch, these plugs have to be, these plugs, they have to be orientated to the outside of the cabinet. So that's workable. That's workable. Take this off auto. And do you want to focus there for me, you piece of junk? That's workable. Now it's not laying up against the case edge. It still needs to come about that much farther over. You see the difference? Really needs to come over just a hair more. So you know, the disadvantage to having these big of hands is that you can never get rubber gloves that fit them. And every girlfriend I've ever had, yeah. Anyhow, they've all said the same thing. No, too many fingers. Okay, look. It's not showing up too well. I might need to switch cameras here because I'm getting tired of fighting with this one. I was just thinking, you know, you got a couple extra $1,000 in the bank at this second. Maybe you need to go and buy that Blackmagic 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever it is, Pocket Pro camera. No, we will just endure. Here I'm hand sanding these, right? Like with a file, like a moron. And I finally decided I just went over and I put this in the vise. I got out one of my diamond tip bits, my Dremel, and just went meow, meow. Look, this is really important. These two switches are super critical to how the faceplate aligns with the rest of the cabinet. So technically I could jam this in there and kind of torque it over and make it work, but then the switch is going to drag on the face. So when I go to hit the rocker switch every time, instead of it being nice and smooth, it's going to be like, ugh! And the faceplate's not going to sit on the cabinet square. And if that's all the little bit of slight modification I got to do, so be it. And what caused this? I haven't even tried to fit this one yet. But what caused this is, you know, they make a million of these a day, let's say, or 10,000 or 20,000 of these a day, and the machine just punched it out with the ears not square to the mount. And see, this one's burdened with the same problem. Just look at the ear offset on the holes. So we might end up having to do it to this one as well. Let me see how this fits. Okay, so in theory it shouldn't matter how the switch goes in the cabinet. So that lines up. Let's turn the switch over. Switch doesn't line up. Okay. I would have done that, and let me explain this. I could have flipped this over easily. This switch, I could have easily flipped it over. But it is designed to fit with this being clearanced. Okay, it is what it is. So if I would have flipped this over, like what I'm doing with this one to make it line up, I would now be over the top of this hole. And that's part of our filament leads that come off of our filament transformer, which is a, well, booger to install, so we'd be making life real hard on ourselves. But this switch here, it no fit this way. But when we turn it around, it mounts up perfectly. That's the way it's got to go in. Okay, so it doesn't say anything about it in the book, but since we're starting to get close to where we're going to be populating the upper side of the deck, and we're starting to have parts that are going to be covered up these grommets, it's easier to install them now while we're ahead. The other thing is that I went through and all these nuts, even though they've all got star washers on them, I gave them just the tiniest little touch of blue Loctite, which is no big deal. Those of us in the RC car world, we understand that's not a big deal. A little bit of liquid Teflon can save us 1,000,000 years worth of heartache, right? So just a little bit. And if you need to take the nut off, you just heat it up a little bit with your soldering iron and it breaks the Loctite down. So, okay, moving on. We're now going to go to page 30. Let me grab my camera here real quick, my phone. Take a picture of it so you all can look at it. So now we need to go get our sockets. Zoom in on over here. So now we need to go get our sockets, our thread hardware, our paper insulator, our other paper insulator, number 6 lock washer, number 3 lug, 6/32, and then our two-ear standoff, bottom of chassis, terminal strip. We're going to need a 3-ear, and then we're going to need this long eyelet, which is in that bag over there. We're going to need our relay in a minute and the hardware for it, and our distribution bus. And then okay, let's focus on this. It's weird. They don't give us any orientation, like top-down orientation. I know how this goes because I spent a ton of time looking at one of these. I should probably go grab an SP220 and show you what we're building is like, okay, this is what we're shooting for. Because they don't give you any diagram. So over here they gave us diagrams to look at, like so weird. Maybe they've got it somewhere else in the book. Picture diagrams. Here we go. Chassis photographs. So this is what we're going to build now, is these two. Down in here is our strip, which goes this strip here. It goes on this top corner. And this is where our coax terminus is. They're wanting us to create our ground lugs down here, our ground lugs down here. And let's see here. Revert to detail 4-1D. I'm sure there's somebody out there that's been yelling this at the screen the whole time. Let's see, so let's see. (4-1E) is this here? Okay, well. Yeah. All right, well. It tells us everything we needed to know. I was going to get real physical with it, but that's the way we need to orientate it. Let us take a look real quick. Step back and show you all this stuff. I keep going at this like I've done 100 of these and I know everything. Well, I don't. We like to say around here, we didn't invent toilet paper, but we are smart enough to use it. So everybody remember how this is folded up, okay? Let's take an official look at all the different stuff. This is a diagram book that is sent in with this build. What was I just bitching about? This is how everything needs to be orientated on the face. So let's look at what they have there versus what I've created. I swear I think some dumbass was just bitching about this stuff. Here's the interior wiring diagram. Aren't you glad we figured this out all on our own? Because we took the time to read instructions? Tell me I'm not a typical American male. Oh, man. SB104A transceiver. Worked on one of those. I remember one time having to search high and holy hell for this diagram right here. Huh. Okay. And then this is our schematic diagram that's in the back of the book. Okay, everybody got that? All right, good. All right. Damn BBI. He's so full of himself, he doesn't even want to slow down and look at the paper that was provided to him by the Heath Company. He's a real asshole, you know that? Real asshole. All right, let's slide this over here with the other paperwork. Let's get on with it. Let's go pull some parts, and we are going to create this. Just try not to damage this book too much. We are going to create this. Let's go put this all together. Who needs this? I got pictures. Shit. So I'm sitting here and I'm pulling the sockets, right? And what's inside the socket box is... I don't want to rip paper. Are these. This is what I wanted to show you. This one's missing one. These are chimney fingers. So what do I got this close? Here. This won't require anything. This is a chimney for a 4-1000. So imagine one that's like a fourth this size, okay? This finger stock sits on the outside and holds the chimney in place. These are little spring clips that are designed to lay against the glass and hold the chimney around the tube. So my brain for a minute, we're not doing it on this build, but my brain for a minute thought, how hard would it be to pressurize, like, if I was to take and get rid of the fan in the back, get a small blower, because the biggest weakness of the 3500Z in this design is there's no airflow on the bottom side of the cabinet. So these pins get freaking stupid hot, like silly hot, right? And the solder falls out the bottom of them and then the tube goes bad. I had a guy call me just the other day wanting to know how I soldered the pins on. He's seen a video of where I soldered the pins on the bottom of a 3500Z. And I don't think it'd be that complicated. We'd literally put a plate across the bottom of this, side plate down both sides, pull the fan out, build a small enclosure for it, and have the fan blow directly down into this hole. We would have to drop the sockets, which there's more than plenty of room to do that. Drop the sockets down with some spacers, about that much. Then the air would flow through the whole cabinet, cooling the filament transformer or the filament choke, be able to rush in around the edge of the sockets and then bubble up and then come up the top. And God knows there's enough room inside the deck to be able to support the chimneys. Find the chimneys, find the blower, create the sub enclosure, and a little bit of a ducting shroud. Here's my fourth tine, by the way. Come back to this on another day, but I think I might be thinking about something that somebody else probably already had thought about 4 decades ago, right? Okay, there's all the parts and the paper insulators. This is a kind of a resin-enforced piece of paper. And it's time to take these, which will actually be orientated like so, no. You never remember. Like this. Duh. Hello. I mean, orientated like this in the cabinet, because I make a triangle to ground the grids. Yep. It'll be just like that. And you got crossover wires that go between the two. Yep. Orientated just like this. We're going to mount them right here. Okay, so we're done with page 31. We're going to flip over to page 32, which here's all our parts for page 32. There's a little fibrous washer that's got a shoulder to it that I was on the hunt for. It takes two of those, one on top, one on the bottom for the relay. And then the relay sits just like this on this rubber grommet. So we got the rubber grommet installed. Back on the last page, we got our standoffs, our ground lugs, our sockets, and then this is going to hook up to our coax, our incoming and outgoing coaxes. It's going to be our solder tab point. This is our plug that they're requesting on page 32, which is right here. Let's make sure I got the right side of it. I do. It says to fold the ears of the tabs back. Please don't break, please don't break, please don't break. Okay, it didn't break, thank God. Okay, and we're going to insert this down like that into the hole. So, and then we're going to install our distribution 110-220 jumper bar. Now a lot of these are made from a light tan, and the later models are made from a little bit thicker, heavier dutier, more fiber reinforced board Bakelite material. Of course, this is a later model, so let's go ahead and let's get those dropped in. That means these holes here will get used, this hole here and that hole there will be occupied. Okay, page number 32 is complete. Plug is in, power strip is in, relay is installed, grommet's in, good to go. Well, that is that for now. Now I need to start prepping myself for the ALC board, which was going to require my very solder encrusted work stand and this particular strip board right here. This particular strip board is the bane of a lot of 11 meter dudes' existences. There is a 47 ohm resistor that burns up on this strip that causes a lot of problems for a lot of dudes in the 11 meter world because they don't understand that this amp can only take about 220 watts of drive. After that, you're overdriving it. So for this next step here on page 33, I need to get my phone out here real quick to get another picture for you all to be able to go back and look at. I'm going to need to pull the 47 ohm resistor, a 2200 ohm resistor, a 0.02 UF ceramic capacitor, a 500 volt small 0.001 UF ceramic capacitor, and a 0.02 UF ceramic capacitor. I'm going to need to prepare a 10-inch orange wire, a 17-inch long yellow wire, and connect one end of the 10-inch ohm wire to the terminal BE lug number 6. This is going to be lug number 1. This is going to be lug number 6. And what they're referring to is BE and BF. So this is BF, this is BE, this is going to be terminal 6, this is going to be terminal 1. We're going to have resistors going, and then a diode, and then a capacitor in here. So instead of boring you guys half to death with that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get this all pre-assembled and ready to go, and then we'll put it in the cabinet. The instruction says for me to mount this first and build it in the cabinet. I personally don't want all the solder flux and everything flip-flopping all over the place. And I know this looks like butt, but remember, I don't do fine electronics over here. I do heavy duty stuff, and usually this has got a piece of 4 gauge or 1/0 in it, and I got a torch and I'm heating up an eyelet. So, but for today's purposes, this will work just smashingly. Well, that's it. That's your ALC board right there. This little 2200 ohm resistor, 2200 ohm, yeah. 2200 ohm resistor right here in the front. You put more than 220 watts of drive into it and this resistor disintegrates, protecting the circuit, but in the same breath, the box shuts down. So you'll notice that this one lug that's right here is not soldered in the front. That's because there's a disc capacitor that goes between here and your output's RF source on your band selector. That's what drives this whole circuit, is that resistor, this capacitor, and then the disc capacitor that sits in there, which we have yet to install. Of course, as always, Teflon wire. We did heat shrink on the joints at the board to help bolster the joint. And you camera are really starting to upset me because you can't seem to find focus and understand what we're doing. We're just looking at one plane of existence. That does look very chaotic, but believe me, this is way better than anything I've seen come in here in a long time. The kit built boxes were even tighter than this. The wires are literally just jam dropped and soldered. So we brought all of our legs together for our capacitor bank on the back. We're going to bring that, hook that around back down to this ear, and we're going to tie it into ground. Let's get this thing mounted. That's it. Oh, lordy. Okay, so we're on page number 34 now. Page number 34 is the installation of the shield and our shorting strap. Yay. Lock washer thread, lock washer thread, lock washer thread. Let's go get our shield. And this is it. Just like that. Let me take a quick picture of this. So we're going to do page number 34 and page number 35, pretty close to each other. God, it's already 5 o'clock. What a day. It's been fun. I mean, I've been out here working kind of uninterrupted since about 9:30 this morning. Just farting around with this and stuff. This has been nice. Let's get the, only weird is that there was some jizz or some shit that's on the cabinet here. I'm gonna get that cleaned off and this goop cleaned off of here. And let's make this look right, and then we will get the shield down. I'm probably gonna break for dinner. I'll be back out to finish up the Zener and part of the bypass tuning cap. later on tonight. So I better get to cleaning, because it's almost 5 o'clock. And that's when the whistle blows on this salty mine. Because then I got to spend the next hour and a half, usually 2, on the phone. And then I'll come out here and button up the rest of this. And then sit down for 2 hours and 3 hours and edit video. And then let it upload. I think that we're going to be able to get a majority of this done, if not completed, probably before the end of this weekend. What do you guys think? Hold on one second. So, to answer your question, partner, yes, I did find the little red plastic tool. Now, what did you say your name was?
My name's Bill Tate.
And how long did you work for Heathkit?
Oh, my goodness, I started in, I want to say 1966.
What was your primary job
in
there?
Detroit.
What was your primary job there, Bill?
I'm a technician, and I was mainly designated general, but then after a year I was upgraded to doing mostly just the ham kits, because we started, we really got diversified and got into a lot of, the 2-liter kits started coming out, the old HW16 and the Hot Water 101 and the SB220, and I think it was the 200 that had the couple of old, 572Bs in it?
Yeah, the Death Nail 572Bs. Yep, they're still out there. I got one guy, I'm helping him rebuild it over the phone right now, believe it or not. Yeah, those SB200s, I've never been a big fan of them, but man, they have held the test of time as far as them guys are still using them, you know.
Well, the original tubes, gosh, I want to say, weren't they made by RCA or?
All the ones I've ever seen were made by Amprex.
Yeah, that's Amprex. Yeah, all Amprex, and RCA, I think, must have been the 811As.
I think you are correct. So I'm looking for a 5/16 spacer. That's not it. I'm working as I'm talking to you, Bill. That's it. That's a 5. No, it's not threaded. That's threaded. That's the spacer. I'm sitting here putting the RF shield in this deck right now as I'm talking to you. That's why you're on speaker.
Oh, yeah, it was, I started there when I got out of high school. And,
what year did you get out of high school, Bill?
1968, but I started at Heathkit, I want to say around 1966 or 67. We had, they had the main plant in Benton Harbor here in Michigan.
Yeah.
And the main 2 stores that started up right away was right here in Detroit on 8 Mile Road, East 8 Mile Road and West 8 Mile Road. And I started out at the East store here, not too far from where I-94 is down here. And then I went back and forth out to the West Side store. And they had ham stuff there that they wanted fixed, so I would just go over there for a day or 2 and work on the stuff, and then come back over this way. But I cut my teeth on just about everything Heathkit made there, including some of the TVs.
You were telling me a minute ago. You're telling me a minute ago the nightmares of the TVs. I didn't know Heathkit made a color television.
Yeah, that was, gosh, I'm trying to remember when they shut down the last company-owned store. I think I know I've got all their catalogs here still in a pile. I've got every catalog just about that he could ever made.
Jeez.
And I stuck it away in a pile, and they're pretty pristine. And it's funny to go back through those and look at them and look at, I start remembering all them kits they had over all the years.
When they sat down and they did a kit, let's talk about this SP220 that I'm working on right now. When they sat down and they did a kit, how many people were involved in getting that kit put together?
In the factory, as far as
Well, let me ask you about both sides. Like, so when they went to assemble a kit, which I'm really impressed with how well it was all packaged. When they went to assemble a kit, how many people were actually involved with just, let's say, assembling just the kit? Getting it all ready to go out the door.
I want to say around a total of 200 people.
Wow. So they just...
We had a lot of engineers. We had a lot of the metal work was done right there too, and they used pretty high quality parts for back then. I know now you look at them and they don't look don't look nothing like they do now, but back then they were pretty high quality parts they put in those boxes.
Well, they're still, I mean, let's look at the doorknobs. I'm sitting here pulling parts, getting ready to put the bypass in and the shorting bar, and I'm not going to lie, the parts that are in this kit are great. It's just, once again, I'm working with stuff that was put in a box 50 years ago, you know? And so like the coax and that kind of stuff, I'm not gonna use that. We're gonna use a little bit more modern stuff, the RG400 and the 393 and stuff. But I mean,
that's the way to go.
Yeah.
That's the only way to go.
The doorknobs, I'm so grateful that the doorknobs don't have the moisture issue that we've run into. I don't know, which segment of video are you watching? You on part 1 or part 2, Bill?
I'm on part 2 right now. I got it frozen when that come across my mind. If you had found a little tool that we had, we used to give those things away. People come in the store and we'd say, here's a couple of these. Try them out. You'll love them. Working on everything. It was great. It would hold it nice and snug, but not to the point where you could just pull it back and release it. And you could get it started in hard spots. Down in the corners were always a pain, getting them little nuts, and get the washer on and get the little nuts started. Down in the bottom corner was always a pain.
Well, I don't know how well or how long you've been following the channel, but about 2 years ago I cut the tip of my finger off. I had a 120 millimeter punch, and I was cutting some stainless steel with it, and I was cutting out an opening for a 4-inch fan, and I didn't think anything about it, and I pulled that punch apart, and the cut off metal that was inside the punch was just sharper than a razor blade, and it sliced the whole end of my fingertip off down to the bone. Here's a video of it out there. I put that on YouTube, but it took 8 months for the end of my fingertip to kind of heal back up to where I've got the ability to touch it. And my finger finally it's healed, but when it comes to starting these little nuts in those awkward positions, sometimes it's a little bit of a chore. But like I explained in the segment earlier that I shot this morning, this tool is fantastic, but the plastic on it's so old that it's just barely holding on to anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll look and see how many of those I got. Maybe I'll ship you out a few.
Don't worry about it, Bill. But what do you what really did get my attention is the 3500Zs on the pallet. How many of those do you have left, do you think?
and I think I've got 5 left now.
Okay.
5 or 6 left.
So, what was the biggest kit that you think Heathkit ever built?
It'd have to be the last biggest color TV. I want to say it was a 23-inch.
Oh boy.
But but as far as kits go, I'd probably have to say the Warrior. That was one of my favorite kits.
I got one of those. I think everybody I know has got a set of those. My very first amplifier was the Kiowa, the one that had the 811As in it.
Okay.
You remember they were all the same size unit as the radio, the receiver, and then the amplifier. They're all in those big giant copper boxes. You know what I'm talking about? It's got the same plate transformer in the SP220. It's got the fan in it of the SP200, and it's got 811As in it, 4 of them. Mercury rectifier tubes in the back.
Oh Lord, yeah, I remember that.
That was my very first, what I consider to be a big amplifier back in the day.
Yeah, the other one Heathkit made was that little, the one I always thought was kind of cute was that one that was, I think it was that Johnson. They made a single tube 811A. It was a cute little amplifier. That might have been Johnson. I worked on a few of those.
That thing was really cool because it didn't have a fan, and the 811A, or no, it was an offshoot of like the 250B that was down inside of there, and it had a solid anode on it. And it was kind of a hybrid amp. It was, it's like a 250B kind of tube or a 350 or something like that. And it had a digital display on the part front of it, and and I've worked on a bunch of those little guys. Pain in the butt, and when you can't find those tubes no more. And so there's a whole subculture that's popped up about retrofitting those tubes with Russian tubes. You know about that? Have you heard about that?
No, I know the last years that Heathkit was still in business, they come out with a lot of newer type ham equipment, amplifiers. They made that, what was it, a single tube 3500Z amp.
Yeah, so that's the Heathkit 1000. I've got one of those here for repair right now too. They changed
That almost
the
looks like a copy of the Ameritron.
Yeah, and it's brown and tan. It's not the standard green. And yeah, I got one of those sitting over here on the floor for repair. Changed the knobs, changed the displays. They broke the mold. They went away from what they'd been doing for decades. You know what I mean?
Right, and that's why I thought that was kind of a mistake doing that. But
so when did you leave
there was
Heathkit?
a lot of. Oh my goodness! I went to work for Motorola and. '72.
God, I still hadn't even been born yet.
Yeah, I worked for Motorola for quite a few years too. Done a lot of engineering work, and I got trained out there in Schaumburg, Illinois, by Motorola. I've got a whole box full of certificates. Every time you go there for a couple of days and get trained on something, you get a certificate, and you get. You don't get a big raise, but you get a certificate to put on the wall.
Yeah, that allows you to tell somebody if anybody ever asks, yeah, I've been trained, yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
it's a shame too about Motorola. You know, when the cell phones come out, the two-way radio business went right down the tubes.
Yeah, well, I think it did for everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember that time pre-cell phone, and then the first cell phones we had were like bricks, literally like bricks, with an antenna hanging out of them, and you were paying by the minute. Literally by the minute.
Well, the very first ones were on like a repeater on the VHF band.
Yeah, they were.
And you had this big
radio phone.
Bone anchor in the trunk.
Yeah, radio phone.
Yep.
Yeah. But no, the whole radio world changed. I remember just here locally on, let's just use the CB for an example. We had 300 or 400 people on the CB. We had 2 local channels, 25 and channel 32. We were always getting together and having barbecues and breaks and all kinds of shit. And within 5 years of the cell phone coming out, we're down to about a dozen people.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Same here. Same thing happened to us.
Yeah. And it was
Yeah.
a beautiful
We
thing.
sold off about. Go ahead.
That was a beautiful thing. You know, radio. It's never going to be the same. It's never going to come back. It's so funny. I travel, Bill, and I go places, and people ask me, well, you know, because I wear my own shirts and jackets and shit everywhere I go, and they all ask me, so what do you do? And I'm like, well, I work on antique, through board, radio equipment, old school electronics. I'm like, what? And I'm like, well, did your grandpa or your dad ever have a ham radio? Yeah. Well, that's what I do. And they all say the exact same thing. It's hilarious. Wow, that's still a thing? It's like, yeah, it's a shadow of what it used to be, but the way the market has corrected itself, Bill, has been amazing. And what I mean by that is there's not enough people to do the work that there's a demand for right now. I'm covered up for a year.
I can see it.
I'm covered up for a year, and the only thing I do is amplifier repair, right? And everybody that I know that's in this business that's semi-legit, like they answer their phone and they put stuff in the mail and they finish it when they say they're going to get done with it, they're covered up. Every CB shop, the dozen or so of them that are in the United States, they're all so super busy they can't even sit still. It's crazy. There's not enough people to do the repair work because there's still enough people in the market, but there's not enough. At one point, there was too many repair shops and nobody to do the work for. And here within the last decade, that's completely changed.
Yes, and I think part of it is because the band openings are so few and in between now. The interest in the, especially in ham radio with the internet and everything, and the clubs around here are falling apart, and the I think if we had 4 or 5 years of some really good propagation, I think the hobby would bounce back like you wouldn't believe. I think ham radio and CB would really have a big comeback.
Well, you know that according to the FCC, there are more ham operators now than there ever have been. The thing is most of those people that a large chunk of them that have their licenses are preppers. They got their licenses around 2000 and then again in 2012, you know, and they're not active with their radio equipment, but they keep the license. So you got all these hams out there, but none of them are active in the community. Have you noticed that?
Well, now that you brought it up, the next street over from me, I had a couple of the hams approach me, and they wanted me to build them a repeater. And they're all preppers, every one of them. And that's how they explained it to me. And they've got a great big gun range out there in the back of their property, and all the preppers go over there on the weekends, and and play with their toys.
Yeah, it's a
And
whole little subculture that most people aren't even aware of. It's a real deal.
Yeah,
It's a real thing, you know.
I'm a little bit of a prepper. I'm not real big into it, but enough that I can see, the writing on the wall coming. But
yeah, let's not get into that right now. Let's
right.
We got other things to talk about, brother. So, on the assembly line, when people were actually doing these in the warehouse or in the assembly, when they were putting SP220s together, let's say, how many people were actually talking? Were actually involved in doing the actual kit assemblies? Because I don't think, Heathkit really was not that famous for selling directly from the factory, it was primarily buy our kits, right?
Yeah, not much come pre-assembled. What our policy was is we will not let you fail. That was our policy. So if you come in, had no experience, weren't sure on which end of the soldering iron to hold, we would guarantee that you wouldn't fail. And that was mainly my job. They would put the kit together, and then I would have to sit and just about go through the whole thing and find out which wire was wired in the wrong place on the wafer switch or what exactly they did. And I even had a lot of customers that bought many kits from us. There were customers that bought 30 or 50 kits in, say, 5 or 6 years. And I would say, go to this point and then bring it in, and I'll go through it and look at it and tell you how you're doing. I've sat people down and taught them how to solder correctly, and we did everything to try to make sure that they didn't fail. That was our biggest concern, is that the customer would buy the kit, start putting it together, and then you know how it is by word of mouth. You probably get most of your customers.
I get a majority of my customers are from the YouTube channel and me demonstrating what I do. Because there's no one really out here. We got one guy out here, and he's kind of an egomaniac, and in the beginning he decided that he wanted to run me down instead of supporting me. And here I am 10 years later, very successful, and, well, we all know where he's at. So, needless to say, at the end of the day, you just keep trucking forward, and eventually, the pieces start to fall into place. You know what I mean? But there's no one out here for me to do the word of mouth thing, and primarily most of my customers come from the YouTube channel, believe it or not. And they sit down and they hear something about me or whatever.
Your channel.
Yeah, they hear something about me or whatever, and then they start digging through YouTube, and usually about the 5th or 6th video of me taking some burned up piece of junk and turning it into something pretty, they're all like, whoa, hey, maybe he can help me with my project. You know?
Oh, I love watching you do the mechanical work too, not only the soldering and the electrical work, but I like watching, I picked up a few little things from you and many other people. I know all the box builders here in the area, and we've been at the swaps together and done a lot of talking, and we all trade little hints and little ideas that
make everything better.
Make it successful.
Yeah. Well, Bill, you're going to be the envy of all your little buddies, because this entire last little bit that we've been on the phone, I've been kind of doing a quasi-interview with you, and I've been recording it on video. As I've been sitting here working, I've been taking what I call an oral history of you and where you worked and what you did and what went on at Heathkit. I find it all incredibly fascinating, and I personally believe that I would love to sit down and be able to go find a the head engineer at Heathkit, if he's still alive, the head engineer at Ameritron, if he's still even bothered to be with the company now that they've got bought by MFJ, which to me is kind of scary, taking into account how the quality of the work that comes out of MFJ anymore. No offense, MFJ, but I'd love to sit down with all of these people and get their history. Does that make any sense?
Sure it does.
Because once you guys are gone, no offense, once you guys are gone, that history's lost forever. You know what I mean?
I would like to sit down with all the guys from Tech too.
Oh boy, that would be a good conversation, wouldn't it?
Oh, I'm telling you, that would be. It's a shame what happened there, but I don't know the whole story. I ran into the gentleman that bought Tech talked to him on 40 meters one day, and we had one. I wish I would have recorded that conversation, but we had a great time.
Yeah, I don't. Unless it's something positive, you'll find that I'll steer away from it every single time, because it's like I'm just not into putting other people down or being negative. You know what I mean? Never have been, never gonna be, kind of deal. So, yeah, what happened with Tentec's been very interesting to watch on the sidelines. They've made some amazing equipment over the years, though. You got to give them credit. Amazing equipment. Usually way ahead of everybody else in the field.
Ahead of their time and receive audio.
What now? What about receive audio?
Yeah. They were kind of ahead of their time. Tech, I always thought had the just a basic receiver design that just sounded so clear, and their stuff was, I know most of their stuff, the earlier stuff, was so easy to work on. You could get in there, and the guy that liked the tanker, the new ham guy, could actually change his own transistors and all that stuff, and they made a nice piece of equipment, and it sounded good. They had beautiful transmit and receive audio. I loved it.
Did you catch that video that I did of
that they bit the dust?
I don't think they're out of business. I just don't think that they're producing a lot at the moment. Did you catch the video that I did of the guy's Tech 425, the Titan with the pair of 400s in it, or pair 800s? Man, yes. that made me cry on the inside. I was like, that sucks. I mean, that just sucks, because, I mean, that guy has had that amp, think about it, most of his adult life. He bought it in 1990, and he paid like $5,000 for it in 1990s, or, well, $3,000. It would be like $5 or $10,000 today. And he ran that thing every day for ever. I mean, it really bummed me out. That whole, and the fact that we can't get any more tubes, right? So I said, well, what do you want me to do with it? And he goes, well, just fix it as best you can and then send it back to me. I said, well, it's already okay. So I got to replace the glitch resistors, and that's it. And the thing will come back to life. And then it's just going to sit. I know it's just going to sit. So I'm just giving myself some time on that deal, because I know I can't let that amplifier die. I'm sure within the next 6 months, because it, you know, he sent it out here, and I told him, I said, if you send that out here, I'm not going to be able to look at it for a long time. And the only reason it got up on the workbench right away is because he shipped it with the tubes in the deck. And I wanted to make sure that, you know, the tubes weren't completely destroyed up in there. So I've got time, and it's going to sit here for a couple more months, and I'm praying that somewhere along the line I can get a good deal on a set of tubes for him, or, you know, even if they're used, because the ones you got now, you can't even put high voltage to them, they just arc over.
Yeah. Well, they've got a load of 3CX300s too. Out there, you could stick 2 or 3 of them in there.
Well, I'd have to put 4 in there, but I mean, I could put 2 in there without even having to convert anything, for the most part. But hey, question:
Yeah.
you said you had a bunch of test equipment there. You don't happen to have a high pot tester, do you?
You know what? I heard you mention that on TV, and I used to. I do not have it anymore, but it was only I want to say 1,000 or 1,100 volts.
Oh darn! Yeah, I'm on the hunt, brother. I'm on the hunt. I really
I'll
want.
keep my eye open for you.
Yeah, I really want something that's 10 to 15,000 volts. Because a lot of the tube amplifiers, the bigger stuff, the tubes are 10,000, 12,000 volts. So yeah, I've got to go bigger. Had a guy message me today. He found one on eBay, an open box deal on a Chinese-made one that it's only like $399. It does 10,000 volts. I was like, whoa. In the same breath, man, I really want. I don't know if you got the jive or not. I'm way pro America.
I have repaired or tried to have repaired so much, as you put it, Chinesium stuff. It's just unbelievable, some of the garbage that comes in, but they made an improvement lately, but it's still not, you cannot compare to the old Toshiba transistors. You can't compare to the iMac tubes. It's just, unfortunately, they're not there yet. They're just not quite there.
We, a friend of mine and I had this huge conversation the other night. We're both, I don't want to say major players, but we're very much in just the amplifier game, period. And for the life of us, we cannot understand how every single thing gets copied in China, and this one component that is free sourced, as in everybody and their brother can go out there and go look up the diagram on the inside, how to set the dies up for the machine, the parameters, everything involved with this one part, and we can't get a company in China to copy a Toshiba transistor down to the traces, the thickness of the metal. We can't get that. It blows our mind. We should be able to easily have this done at this point, because there's no copyright infringement.
Yeah.
There's no nothing, and we don't. Instead, we're stuck with these knockoff transistors that the guys in China are like, "Whoa, we designed way for ourselves. It's superior." Well, they got
an enormous chemicals that are used to process these things, and a lot of these chemicals they use too are very toxic. So there's a lot of American companies that don't want to touch anything like that because of the handling and the licenses you got to pull to have those chemicals to do the processes on some of these, especially ICs nowadays.
Yeah, no. It's not that. It's we can't get. I don't understand why they will literally. If you take a Lamborghini to China, they're going to take it all apart and they're going to copy it down to the screw, and then sell their own version of it. But we can't get them to copy a stinking Japanese transistor to save our life. But we don't understand. We don't understand why. Here we're selling and moving and working through this huge quantity of parts every year. We're talking, 20, 30,000 transistors a year going into the market for repair or new builds. But we can't get them to copy a component that we know that works. It's very frustrating on our side of the street. But It is what it is.
Well, it's that big jump to FETs and, MOSFETs and TFETs and...
Well, Bud, the MOSFET thing is great. God knows I've spent enough time there working with it. And the technology is there. It works. The problem is the end user is what we figured out. They don't understand that it's a lower drive thing. And they're always trying to compare it to a transistor amplifier. It's like, it's not a transistor. I built this, I built a 2-pill unit for a guy, and it had 9 stickers on it that said no more than 100 watts peak, all over the damn thing. Said it in the video, the whole 9 yards. I sent it to the guy, and he proceeds to hook a 200 watt radio up to it. And I said, well, what'd you do that for? And he goes, well, it produces the same amount of power as an 8-pill, so it should take about the same amount of drive, right? No. I had enough attenuator. It only takes 10 watts of drive on a 2-pill unit, and I had a big attenuator in there to knock the power down just so you could put like a striker or a 100 watt radio into it. So he sent it back. We put the new transistors in it, retested it, recertified it, sent it back to him again, and what does he do? Goes and hooks up a 130 watt radio to it and blows it up again.
Yeah, and if you do the math into 50 ohms, and you look at the voltage that you get from the calculation, you're overvoting it. You got too much voltage on the gate of the device. You pop the hole through the substrate. Well,
the gate voltages are pretty well controlled. We got that figured out. It's you're oversaturating the component, and it's. We're talking, we got devices now that you can weld with, right? They don't care if the antenna is attached or not. They don't give a crap. You can't overdrive them. You just can't overdrive them. And guys aren't getting it. Well, Bill, I want to say thank you. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let you go. I'm going to call you back in just a couple minutes. I want to continue talking to you, but I got to wrap up this little segment of video. I've finished where I want to be on the cabinet. And I appreciate your time tonight, and I'm sure everybody on YouTube is going to enjoy hearing your stories. But I mean, you're 200 people doing assembly lines on SP220s. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, there's a lot involved. Some of it's subcontracted out, but there's a lot involved on these kits that people don't realize. That just the chemical processes is unreal. The painting, the stripping, just unbelievable.
Well, Bill, I thank you for your time. I appreciate what you've done for a living and spent your life working on, and I want to say thank you for it. I appreciate you reaching out to me tonight, and I think everybody that's in YouTube is going to really appreciate you calling and saying something to me. And it was like I was telling you early on the phone, every single person I've talked to today, except for one guy, he was a gynecologist, which is a whole nother story. A doctor, happened to be a gynecologist, needed some help on a Drake. Every single person that's called me today has wanted to talk about this project. And I've really tried to set aside this allotted amount of time, this end portion of the week and this whole weekend, because I want to do this entire kit right. And I know that this is our last chance to probably see one of these assembled on video ever. I mean, we might get lucky and there might be another guy that's going to go out and do another one on video, but I doubt it, because there's so few and far between. And I'm not going to lie, there was probably an opportunity to do this has come up 4 or 5 times, but then either the kits weren't complete, or they had water damage to them, where the aluminum was all destroyed, or they were missing the meters, or the tubes were ripped out of it, or to have one that was completely sealed and nobody's fingers ever got into it was very, very hard to find. Very hard to find.
Yes, and I also appreciated that video you did too on that one that was all the whole 220 was the whole chassis was stripped down and powder coated.
Oh, that was the prettiest amplifier I've ever seen. I had that guy's book that he used as his reference material that they sent with that amplifier. And I had it taken to a professional print shop, and I had it fully, completely copied. Because I was just blown away with all the modifications that guy had put into that amplifier. And we're talking colored copied that entire manual that he had sent with it. That amplifier was gorgeous. Gorgeous. All powder coated everything. That was the prettiest SB220 I've ever seen and probably ever will get to see.
Isn't the hobby exciting? I love it.
Well, I think every hobby's exciting like this if you get into it. Like when I was into doing muscle cars, that was one time, and then when I got into competition shooting, that was another level of the same thing. And the radio thing for me has always held a special place in my heart, and this is where honestly I've spent 7, 8, 9 years now working on doing just this. And when I say it at the end of every video, I am truly grateful for everybody's support, because without anybody else wanting to help me do this, projects like this SB200 or SB220 and the 10,000 others that I've done, like what, 5,000 something other projects now, wouldn't have happened. And to me, I think it's great, because one person at a time, we're trying to keep radio alive for them. You know what I mean?
And it's a good hobby. And I'll tell you, I've never been sorry 1 second in my life for taking the electronics route, for learning electronics and doing it every day for 40-something years.
I mean, we're not going to even talk about all the other shops that I work with and how they have been able to pick up business because of the channel, and we're all working together as a team, and how successful everybody that's worked with me has become. It's an unbelievable blessing. I got one guy right now that when he came to me and he had his CB shop, he was just a one-man band. Now he's got like 5 people working for him, and I mean, he's just assholes and elbows. He's so busy. It's just everybody working together as a team trying to keep the hobby alive. Everybody that's on that same page with me, every one of them is just unbelievably successful. And we've all been so blessed, and I'm so grateful for it. But Bill, I'm going to let you go. I got to wrap this video up. This is part 3, and you're the tail end of it. So I appreciate you, my friend. Give me a few minutes, and I'll call you back, okay?
All right, you got the number there and everything?
Yeah, I got it right in front of me, my friend.
Okay.
I'll talk to you in a minute. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, guys, here we are. We're at the end of this deal. We're at the end of today, for sure and a certain. We are on page 35, and we've completed out page 35. And now we're going to go to page 36, where we're going to put the input tuner network in. And this is about where I wanted to get. I wanted to get to page 35 today, and that worked out just perfectly with Bill calling me there. I never know who's going to be on the other end of the phone. I never know. And I've had some unbelievably interesting people call me, and I've had some unbelievably cool and caring and kind, tender people call me that want to teach me and help me, but I'm not joking you. Bill's probably the 3rd person today to tell me about this. So grateful for it. I'm going to have a conversation with him now about all the little tips and tricks that he's learned on this, that eventually I'll be able to disseminate out to all of you guys. And if it wasn't for all of us, that includes you guys, the viewers, working with us, all that knowledge that I'm going to go get from him, if I get any, would have been lost. And now it gets to live on. We're all in this together, guys. Believe it or not. And being an ego-driven maniac and talking crap about each other doesn't get anybody anywhere. Well, gentlemen, my name is BBI, and this is the end of part 3. Tomorrow we are going to get down through. Tomorrow's going to be a long haul, and it's going to be a long video. But I want to get up into the 50s and be almost completed with this tomorrow, and then have a whole day to where I can sit around and just fiddly fart with it. And I think that's probably going to be Sunday. So, guys, you got any questions, anything I can do to help, don't hesitate to call. The number's right here. I'll be out in the shop working all day tomorrow. Normally I'm closed on Saturdays, so big shout out to Siglent, big shout out to Excess Power, thank you, Harbach, for stepping up and donating the new capacitors for this thing and working with us and being able to get this project done for everybody. Can't say thank you enough to those guys. And last, and I mean this sincerely, I thank every single one of you guys for being here, watching the videos, being involved, coming over to the Facebook group, BBI Amps, the Facebook group, and being involved there, interactive with all of us, helping teach. I think it's amazing. Those guys over there, they're putting up pictures. Hey, here's my pillbox, help me. And before I can even get around to answer to it, there's already like 30 or 40 posts of people like, here, check this, look at this, do this, test this, how can I do this? And I'm starting to see, this is the weirdest phenomenon I'm starting to see with that, is there's 2 or 3 other new startup amp building companies that have just popped up out of nowhere. None of us have ever heard of them, and they're all in there trying to interact and learn, and it's good. It's a bunch of good stuff. I thank you guys. I'll see ya. Bye-bye.